one of the things I want to spend a good bit of our time talking about is the value that I see in your work a lot about women's empowerment.
Mm.
And I want to start with that specifically in sexuality and ask you the question, what do you think is the message that women receive about sexuality in the modern world and what is wrong with it?
Yeah, good question. I think in general, women feel shame for for embracing their sexuality. Like there's still that, you know, feeling of like, if I'm too sexual, am I too much? Is this
Hmm.
too much? Will it be too much for the people around me or for my lovers or my partner? And so I think we collectively hold back in a way. Like we don't want to be perceived as a slut, quote unquote, or a whore. Like that's just like, we don't want that label
Yeah.
because that label has been used to degrade women rather than be like, this is actually really empowering to own that about ourselves, that, sacred slut, so to speak. So
Yeah.
yeah, we hold back and like yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. The too much thing is interesting. I hear that a lot from the women in my life when it comes to fears or insecurities about self-expression. Like, how do you see that in sexual expression?
Yeah, look, I think we hmm, I think women don't fully allow themselves to go there with what they deeply desire a lot of the time. This is generalizing, but the everyday woman doesn't allow herself to go deep and to open and to really surrender into her deepest desires because there's a fear that she'll be judged for those desires or those fantasies because it may be too much for her partner and her partner may be turned off. So there's that fear
Mm.
of abandonment and rejection for just truly embracing um, that part of ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that you draw a connection with the fear of abandonment. Like the idea of being too much for somebody is really interesting. I haven't thought about that in terms. I mean, obviously, like in the general psyche, like in our modern day society, there's shame around sexuality, and those come from a lot of our roots. But yeah, like the idea of I don't want to express myself fully because I'm afraid that my partner might not be able to match where I'm coming from and might be afraid and run away.
Yeah, look, most women in general have an abandonment wound, or a
Mm.
lot of us do, and so do men. But if we're speaking specifically about women, that abandonment wound often comes from our father or a male figure in our life who was somebody in our life in those first 7 years of our life or up until teenage years who we loved and adored and then who for some reason didn't necessarily physically abandon us, but it could be emotionally just wasn't there for us. Or like a specific example would be you know our parents get divorced and our father has to move out, and so there's that abandonment that happens, right? That
Mhm.
our father didn't necessarily go, I'm going to now abandon my children. But the
Yeah.
story that we make about it is daddy left and I can't trust men because if I do, they're going to leave me anyway. And so we
Mm.
have this abandonment wound, a lot of us. And then, yeah, it's natural that, we fall in love or we meet someone who we're just, deeply connected with sexually. But there's this fear of like fully expressing ourselves and opening because if I do that, they may leave me, so I'll hold
Mm.
back and I'll be nice and I'll be good and I'll kind of sit in like just pleasing my partner because I don't want them to leave because I'll feel pain again and I don't want to feel that pain that I felt when I was younger.
So there's the safety that happens by attraction and staying in like this lack of self-expression. I'm like a half the woman that I would be. I'm half the woman I would be, but like
Yeah,
half the woman you would be out of fear. Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
in why, for somebody that's in that situation, for somebody that really resonates with that and feels like they're not fully expressed, not showing up in their relationship fully, not showing up in their life fully,
Mm.
from your perspective, why is it so important that a woman begins that relationship with herself sexually and begins to connect to herself sexually?
Look, it's just part of like general health. Like, I see sexuality as I zoom out and I work very holistically with women and men. And so if we're not expressing our sexual energy is our life force energy, it is our
Mm.
creative energy. If we ignore that or suppress it or numb it or just push it down, which a lot of us do, then we are literally suppressing a part of ourselves and our life force, and we're not allowing that to free flow and fuel our life and our creativity and our parenting and our business. Like, there's so many ways we can use that life force energy. If we're not doing that and we feel shame or guilt or fear of being too much, then it literally creates health issues. Women start to experience painful periods or like cysts on their ovaries or what else, like lots of like thrush, like candida overgrowth, like all these things show up in women who are suppressing their sexuality, pushing it down, ignoring it,
What's thrush?
suppressing their desires.
Would you mention thrush and what?
Do you know what thrush is?
No.
It's candida. I don't know what you call it in the States. It's like an overgrowth in our of look, I am not a
Not a
scientist. So
gynecologist.
I'm not a gynecologist. It's basically like, when women get itchy, they get itchy in their vagina. Often it shows up as like an itchiness, and then it shows up as like this sounds horrible, but it's like a creamy discharge that has a bad odor, and it's an overgrowth. It's a gut health thing in general.
Like
but I'm not a
bacterial
natural.
vaginosis?
Well, that's different. That's completely different. But that can also show up. Definitely. Like, that's another thing that women get.
It's interesting, you see these physical ailments being tied to the disconnection and suppression of the life force energy inside because of the shame around it and the fear of abandonment.
Absolutely. Like, thrush often shows up for women who hold a lot of shame with their, in relation to their sexuality. So if we hold on to shame, often women will come to me and they're having, ongoing bouts of thrush, which completely affect their sex life, their health. Like, just in general, it feels like absolute hell down there if you have thrush. But so what I do is, obviously they need to approach it from a naturopathic, in my point of view, approach, which is like looking at gut health and all that. But also when I work with them on the shame that they feel, it will often disappear. And thrush often also comes up when women are having sex with their partner or their lovers, and they're doing it out of duty or doing it just because they should rather than because they want to. So they do that, and then their body goes, fuck this. No way are we doing this. I'm going to make it impossible for you to have sex with this person because you're not listening to your body right now. So I'll listen for you.
I'll put up a stop, don't do this kind of signals.
Yeah.
Why is it so much that those like modern day medicine, we don't think about those type of connections. We don't think about if there's shame or energetic suppression in the body as the source of the symptoms we're experiencing.
Because the medical system's fucked, in my opinion. Because
that's a good answer. That's a great answer.
Okay, there's a time and a place for the medical system. I am not naive to think, like, even for myself, I've been in situations where if I didn't have access to great healthcare in a hospital with specialists, that I would have died. So there's obviously a time and a place for it. However, when it comes to looking at health holistically, the training that doctors get isn't holistic like that. It's like, how many drugs can we, you know, teach you about that will mask a symptom rather than zoom out and go, oh, what's your diet? What are you eating? Like, how's your relationship? Because often our body shows up in these different symptoms and disease shows up, and it's linked always to emotional stuff. Always.
That's something that's really powerful, and I sense the wisdom in it. And it's like so counterintuitive to the way that we're raised. I know that the way that I've been raised in Western society with modern medicine, and it's take a pill for everything.
Yeah.
But it does seem that like the source of a lot of illness is neurosis in general, and inner conflict of sorts hasn't been resolved.
Yeah, definitely. It's like that typical case of like a woman or man goes to the doctor and says, I feel depressed. And they're like, take this pharmaceutical, bye.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, well, how are you going? Like, how's your relationship? What's your environment like? Have you, you know, had any therapy?
Yeah. For someone that is interested in beginning to cultivate a healthy relationship with themselves sexually and never has, and has done nothing but just receive information about you don't want to be too much, or someone might leave, or sexuality is shameful and you should express that, that's dirty, don't do it. What's Juliet's intro to the world of connecting to yourself sexually and beginning that relationship?
Just first acknowledging that's something you're curious about and that you want to invest time into, and then devoting time to learn about how you can expand in that area of your life. So, you know, it takes courage to like go there when it comes to sex, and not everyone's ready for that. But if you are ready, seek out education and support, which there's so much now with the internet, you know, like there's just so many free resources out there that you can read and listen to get you started on the journey. But then the next step is you can listen to the podcast, or like you can binge an entire season of my podcast, for example. You can do all my masterclasses, but like it's one thing to listen and kind of process it in your head, but the next step is to embody those teachings. And that takes, in my opinion, more ongoing support with someone like me, someone who you resonate with. You know, surrounding yourself with and learning from women who are already embodying the teachings is really important. And that's what I love personally as a sexologist, is I get to spend time, you know, over time with women, supporting them to integrate the teachings into their life and body, not just listen to them or read them. Yeah.
And like, what are some of the practical first steps for somebody who's like beginning to listen and take in teachings for them to begin to do every day?
Well,
like
you've got to zoom out.
Or,
pardon?
Like noticing what they feel, or beginning to like even just taking the courage to like jot down some of their desires or those types of things.
Yeah. Look, it's like it's first, it's just about relationship with self for anyone, women and men. It's like we need to cultivate a really deep connection, an intimate connection with ourselves, and sexual connection first. And that's the foundation. We can't expect to have really great sex with others and be a great lover if we haven't explored explored self-pleasure and self-love. And so that's the first step, is not to outsource it to a lover, not to project our desires onto anyone else, but to take time to cultivate a beautiful, deep intimacy and love for ourselves. That's the first step. And that looks different for everyone. You know, it's about being comfortable in your own body and being okay with, you know, how you look and feel. And if you're not okay with that, then what are you going to do about it? Like,
that's such a cool thing.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's something that's really cool that I like a lot about the stuff you talk about in your podcast is how sexy it is and how sexually energizing it is, confidence itself, and to feel comfortable in your body. And it seems like you're referencing that as like a foundational framework for your relationship with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. It's the foundations. It's what I teach a lot with women and what I work on a lot with women is like coming back
Mm.
to those foundations and teaching embodiment. Yeah.
And like that is that's something that I've experienced in my own life and my own sexual healing, shifting from performance and appearance to sensation and feeling.
Yeah.
Uh, that's such a powerful shift. Like, what would be the words that someone would need to hear in that area of like how to begin to embrace themselves sexually, feel confident in their own skin, and accept and begin to love their body the way it is? What are some of those words there?
Fuck, this is like a whole 10-week course. Um, how do I sum it up? Look, you have to do, I believe that it's so important and valuable to do the work, so to speak. So really dig deep into what's holding you back from loving your body. Like, what was the
Mm,
messages that you were taught as a young,
mm,
usually in the first 7 years of our life, because those first 7 years is what creates, who we are as an adult. That's
yeah.
that's where we learn everything. So I support people to like go back in time and understand what the blockages are and then how to remove them. Like, what is it that makes you think that you're too much? Was it
Mm,
because one of your parents told you that when you were 4 and you were singing in the shower and they were like, be quiet? That's
mhm.
ridiculous. You're naked and get your shower done, get out. Was
Yeah.
it that your mosquito, and I hate mosquitoes. It's like one of my really pet hates is mosquitoes. What like what, maybe it was like you had your first boyfriend, you were 16 and they told you like that's weird what you're doing, or like you kiss, the way you kiss is gross, and you took that
Yeah.
on and like, you know, all those things. So you've got to identify them, process them. That's like the foundation too, is like go get some
Mm,
therapy and support,
yeah.
We've all got
Yeah,
shit. If you say you don't, then that's a red flag. You do.
yeah. Yeah, and it takes a lot of bravery for someone to go back and say like, okay, what is it that really still has me caught?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um,
many people have like deep trauma too, like sexual trauma that they haven't healed from, and
mm,
like that's a huge process too. And it's something that isn't spoken about enough. It's like, it's not my area of expertise though. It's not actually something that I
mm.
love working with. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
sure. One thing that I really want to ask you is, I sense that one of the deterrents from embracing a woman's sexuality may be that part of the social paradigm is that men are sexual and women are not. And so becoming more sexual is becoming more like a man and less like a woman, less like a lady. Um,
Mm.
in what ways could you encourage someone or shed light on the individual sexuality that a woman has that's different from a man so she can really feel herself step into that?
Yeah, I've never even thought of it like that women would have a fear of like being more like a man. Um, Maybe there is that unconsciously. Like, I don't know.
You're like turning your
I
back on the group. You're like, you
Sorry,
know, you're
what was
like
that?
turning your back on the group. Like you're not one of the girls anymore. Like we're not, now you're like one of the guys, you know?
Yeah, maybe that's, maybe, but I don't know. I think that maybe that's like maybe a cultural thing, like, because it's not
Mm,
like that in Australia.
mm,
With like, there's a lot of like women and like segregation in a way, like women hang with women, men hang with men, but there's a like a cultural thing that we are all very equal here.
mm,
And I don't know, I just don't relate to that personally. I love men. Like, I have no man hating in my body, you know? And I mean, that comes from like doing a lot of healing work. But I also think that the work that I teach, which is tantric teachings, is like integrating your inner masculine and feminine. So that's not necessarily about man and woman, but like these two polarities of energy that are within us as individuals, that have different, you know, aspects, are healthy and unhealthy aspects to the masculine and feminine. But I've done a lot of integration work and actually worked with my own inner man, and like, so I feel quite that's what I teach people to do. So it's not so much about like men versus women for me, or in the work I do. It's about like becoming whole within your inner masculine and feminine, creating a beautiful inner union, so that we're not projecting our stuff onto men, basically.
Yeah. How would you describe the differences of more feminine sexual energy and masculine sexual energy and the way that it surfaces in your experience?
Yeah, so when it comes to more like the different energy, not necessarily man versus woman, because this can apply to same-sex relationships, but it also like can shift in hetero relationships. But so the feminine is more like in receivership and surrender. So she's more in a healthy state, like her heart is really open, she's relaxed, she's in flow. The masculine is more direct. Like in general in life, the masculine prefers, like the masculine in all of us loves a good like to-do list, you know? That's the inner masculine. Like he's got a goal, and he wants to reach that goal, and he's just more direct. So I like to think of it as he holds the energy, and the woman or the feminine can kind of dance around that energy and feel like he's the solid rock. Now, this is the same with masculine and feminine integration within us. We need to have that solid masculine as a woman, and as a man, so that our feminine can feel safe to express itself. And the analogy I like to give is think of a stripper pole. Like think of a stripper. There's the solid pole, and that cannot move or waver, because otherwise the stripper's going to fall flat in her face. So the pole is the masculine. The stripper dancing around the pole is the feminine energy. The pole holds her up. He supports her. He's like solid. He's grounded. He's penetrating the earth. And the feminine is the energy that moves around the pole with grace and confidence and ease and flow, because the masculine's there. So we can look at this concept and apply it to our own inner union, but also outer unions with people outside of ourselves.
Is guiding and leading always attributed to the person who is in their more masculine energy at that point in time?
I would say so, yeah, in general. Yep. Like, in any relationship, whether it's, hetero or same sex, there's going to be someone in that relationship who naturally leads more.
Yeah.
Who leads more in the relationship, and then there's going to be the person who's more in their feminine, who is more like in flow. And what the issue that so many couples come up against is that two people are in their masculine. Yeah. So the woman's in their masculine, the man's in their masculine predominantly, and they're butting heads. Or in a lesbian relationship, and I've experienced this personally in the past, there's two women, they both want to be in their feminine. There's no one leading, right? And then there's no pardon?
Just two strippers, no pole.
Two strippers, no pole. They're literally, and two strippers with no pole. It's like we're lost. Like who's guiding this? And what we need for like great sex is polarity. There needs to be someone, no matter what the relationship dynamic, there needs to be someone who holds the masculine predominantly and someone who holds the feminine pole. Then when there's that polarity, it's like a magnet coming together. The positive and negative come together, fireworks happen. Yeah. So if you're in this relationship and you're listening and it's just gone boring and blah, probably there's not enough polarity.
It's interesting that in order to get along together and like co-living, you might start to shift to be more same. Like you are now more like a balanced energy or more masculine, and they're more masculine. You kind of match their energy. But when it comes to sexual polarity and having like really wonderful, juicy, erotic sex, it's like we need to go back to our place. We need to go back to
Yeah,
our
yeah, yeah,
places
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
And often, like an example of like how this can flip is there can be like a really strong driven businesswoman who's really like done great in her career and has a lot of like authority and leadership in her career, but then you get her into the bedroom and she doesn't want to be like that. She just
Yeah.
literally wants to let go and surrender and be
Yeah.
tied up because she's done with that, and so she
Yeah.
polarizes into the opposite, which a lot of people don't expect. But yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool for people to know that you're who you like move through all day, and the energy you occupy all day may not necessarily be your preferred energy and sexual experiences.
Yeah, yeah,
Something
absolutely.
something that absorbed my complete attention while I was just like binging all of the podcast episodes is the way that you talk about three particular things: periods, childbirth, menopause. All three of
Mm,
those things being super powerful opportunities of rites of passages for women that are often categorized more so as just negative complications of the female experience.
absolutely, yeah.
I never in my mind have I really listened so closely, heard someone talk so powerfully about that. Could you please share about that with my listeners?
Yeah, so these are really important rites of passage. We all have rites of passage as women and men. Um, and but for women specifically, our first rite of passage is our first bleed.
Hmm.
Um, often our second rite of passage is the first time we have sex.
Hmm.
And then any pregnancies that we have, including pregnancies that are full term and that we birth, but and pregnancies that we terminate or that we lose, so like a miscarriage. So that's all considered like a rite of passage. And then you move into like perimenopause, menopause, which I haven't experienced yet, so I find it difficult to speak to that topic.
Sure. Yeah.
And my promise to my audience and my community is that I'm not going to speak about something that I haven't experienced yet. Like I'm not going to speak about that and pretend to know. I
Yeah.
find that actually really like puzzling when, say, someone who's in my career will teach women about, say, postpartum sex, but they haven't had a baby, and I'm like,
You're like, girl, something's off here.
well, this is so out of integrity. It's not funny. Like,
like
what
a
are you
like a
doing?
virgin teaching a tantra workshop.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but that's a red flag.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're all, all these times are really huge moments for us as women, especially like pregnancy and birth, because it's literally a portal that we go into. And then physically, we literally go into this other world to birth this baby, birth a baby through our vagina, ideally. And then we don't just birth the baby, we birth a completely new version of ourselves as women every single time. So the impact that has on us sexually, all the different rites of passage, is huge. And then the next step, to think about as women, and I've learned this from a beautiful elder who's been a mentor of mine, Jane Hardwick Collins. She speaks about the red thread between all the different rites of passage. And so I've done lots of one-on-one work with her to understand what is the thread, what is the common theme from my first bleed and my experience of that into my pregnancies, which I've had about 10 in total, and 3 babies who are beautiful and healthy. But like I would say I'm on probably about 10. And so what is the thread that goes through those rites of passage? And the good thing is, if you can understand what that is early on, you can basically break the pattern. So if you've had a negative first rite of passage, that then impacts the rest of your life, unless you go, oh, this is how I operated because of that. That's impacted me negatively. I'm going to do the work to not have that impact my pregnancy and birth.
And you're saying that like one of the things that I wrote down that I thought Jane mentioned that was really cool is how you're treated during the rite of passage teaches you how culture values the next role you're going into and how to behave to be accepted by that culture.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying, if I'm grasping the idea of the thread correctly, is like period happens, sex happens, childbirth happens. There's like a accumulation of the way you're treated from the first experience that then domino affects the way that you go through the next experience
Yeah. Yeah.
and
So
can
if you
thwart
get
your
your
ability
first
to connect with
bleed,
the power of it.
yeah, so if say this is an example, if you get your first bleed and your experience in that was feeling alone, feeling unsupported, feeling like puzzled by it, or like just a bit like, what the fuck's this?
Hmm.
You know, and you feel like there's a lack of support there, then that then impacts your next rite of passage. So an example of this, skipping the sex one, would be you go into pregnancy and birth and you feel alone again, and you just feel like there's lack of support, and
Mm,
you're like puzzled, you don't get the connection, but you're like, this just feels like a lonely experience, but it's actually a really similar to experience of your first bleed. So it's
interesting.
normalized, and your system is like, yeah, this is what happens. You go through a huge rite of passage and you're alone. If you can
Yeah.
catch that, then you can like change the story.
What is the power of a woman's first period? What's that experience like and what's she interacting with?
Well, it's just a huge, like I say, I keep saying this, but like it's such a huge rite of passage initiation into womanhood. You're going from um being a maiden in the maiden archetype to the like turning into a woman essentially. And in our Western culture, there's not much reverence and respect for that, and no
Mm.
ritual around it. And it's basically like seen as a negative, like, oh God, you got your period, gross. Like,
Yeah, that's all I've
you
ever
know,
heard.
yeah. And so for me, with my daughter who's nearly 20, when she got her first bleed, I made it like I wanted her to feel like it was a really special time for her, and that she was celebrated. So we I my close friends who are also, have been in her life, we all got together, and one of my friends baked this beautiful vulva cake,
Nice.
which my daughter was like, what the fuck? She was a teenager. But I also know deep down she just felt so much gratitude, and we like all
Yeah.
brought her a little gift, and then we sat in circle, we lit a candle, we said something we love about her, our wishes for her future. And then
Mm,
like even my family, like my parents, I like encourage them to, like, even my dad, who's her grandfather, to connect with her and say, hey, like, congratulations,
yeah.
you've become a woman, like so it wasn't
Mm,
about like pushing it into the corner and being like, oh, like this is something we're not going to speak about. It was like a celebration for her.
mm. You're able to go through that experience so much more consciously and probably like begin to wonder about your new role, your new archetype that you mentioned.
Yeah.
What what do
Yeah.
you think of the what do you think the positivities or the positive outcomes are for someone going through their first bleed in that way versus the way that normally is, which is like, toss a tampon, like shove it up
Yeah.
your vagina, get on with it.
Yeah. Which often that's what happens, and women don't even know where their vagina is. So they're like, what the fuck? Like, where do I even put this?
I think I had a better experience. I think I had a better education about periods than most girls did. I remember as a
Yeah.
boy, my mom showing me in the sink like how a tampon works and what it does, and I was like, "That's
That's great.
fascinating."
How
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
I can remember
That's so
that.
Yeah, that's so great. Like, and
Yeah.
this isn't equally as important for young men and like boys to be, to have a mother and parents who are just open about periods. Like I have a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, and 19-year-old, and my 2 and 4-year-old, like, I don't hide putting tampons in and out. Like, my 2-year-old's like, there's blood, and I'm like, yeah, this is all part of like being a woman, and it's
Mm,
not a bad blood. This is good blood. And like,
yeah.
they're just
Mm,
curious. It's like, this is just like talking about what we're going to eat for breakfast. There's no big deal. But
that's so
your
cool.
question was about, the impact of on women. basically there's less shame, there's less like, there's more celebration of like, this is really amazing, I'm fertile, my body is doing its thing, I'm a cyclical woman, my blood is not gross, it's like holds so much power in that. Like have you seen houseplants who've been, this is taking it a little bit, you know, some
No,
people are
go
gonna be
there.
like,
You talked about this in your podcast.
houseplants that have been watered with menstrual blood, like you can dilute it, so you can capture your blood, dilute it in water, pour it on plants. Those houseplants, they are like super powered plants. Like they're never going to die.
If you poured it on a weed plant and then smoked the weed, you could take over the world.
We can make a lot of money. We can make a lot of money. In fact, I'll pitch that to Nick, my partner, because he's probably up for that.
Ask Nick what he thinks. This could be a money-making idea.
He'd be like,
this is your next product, Julie. This is your next.
He'd be like, let's find some seeds and get going. That's what he'd say.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I once had cleaners, this beautiful older couple, and they came every week. And one day the lady said, I just want to know what's your secret with all your houseplants. I've never been able to keep mine alive. And I hesitated, and then I told her. And the look on his face, I was like, that was a dumb idea, Juliet, in my head.
Yeah.
Right.
She never came back again.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it was a bit too far out for her.
That's really, really awesome. Okay. Birth is a sexual experience. That is something I've circled and underlined.
Yeah.
Why is that separated in my brain, and how can I help to reconcile it? Birth as a sexual experience.
Well, birth is so similar to sex because the conditions, firstly, that we need for birth, for a beautiful birth, are the same conditions that we need for lovemaking. So we need dim lighting. We need to be surrounded by people who we feel safe with. We need to be like in a room and an environment where we can open and surrender and trust. And this is what's wrong with birth, is that it's medicalized, it's seen as a problem, not just a natural part of life. And so if we can see it as more like, firstly, we need that environment, the same environment to make love to birth. Firstly, that's really important. And that's because like birth is like a deep surrender for a woman. Like we have to just trust in the mystery. It's literally the epitome of trusting in the mystery of life and death. You know, life and death. Death's the biggest mystery. We never know when it's going to happen, but it's the one guaranteed is death for all of us. And birth is the one guaranteed. No matter how we're conceived, we were birthed. Right? Hopefully that doesn't change all this bullshit stuff that's happening with like babies being made in like Japan in like fake wombs and stuff, which just freaks me out, but we won't go there. So birth is our genitals are such a big part of it that, yeah, I don't know, it's hard to put into words, but for so many women, they do experience it as a sexual experience. Like everything is activated and turned on. And this isn't a beautiful physiological birth. I'm not talking in general a hospital birth that has bright lights, 3 obstetricians, you know, like
it's cold.
It's cold. Literally,
it's so cold.
The bed's so uncomfortable.
Somebody died in this thing I'm wearing yesterday.
Yeah. It's just like, I've birthed in hospital. I've had 3 births. I've 2 in hospital, 1 at home. And my first was in hospital, second was at home, third was in hospital because my third baby was preemie. And so she was too small to birth at home. And for medical reasons, but it was interesting going back to a hospital birth after a home birth. Because it was just so like I couldn't find my nest. Like I tried my best within the system to find this, like, you know how an animal often will like a goat, let's say, will, when it's about to birth, it will like go and just create a little nest and like just huddle there and then So I was trying to find a nest and I couldn't. I still birthed naturally and all that, but it was such a different experience to literally birthing in front of a fireplace.
It seems, yeah, which is so cool. That's such a wonderful story to listen to. Uh,
Mm.
um, it seems like it just like there is such clarity around the power that is in the birthing experience for a woman as part of that rite of passage that seems to just get missed if you do it. No shame to anybody that does birth however they want to.
Yeah.
I'll never birth a baby, so I'm on the
Yeah.
sidelines big time on this conversation.
Yeah.
It seems really, really powerful to go through the experience and to lean into it so much and to trust the flow so much. And um, how do you think that sets your identity up in the motherhood experience, having gone through birth like that?
Yeah, well, Jane would say, referring back to Jane, that like how we birth our babies, we can learn so much from that birth experience. Each child's birth is different. And if we can unpack what we learned from that birth, then we can apply that to parenting that child for life. So
Mm,
each birth will teach us something. Like, so for my first daughter, I birthed her in hospital, I birthed her naturally, but I really felt like it was like, I was up against the system. I was very much like advocating for myself. I had to really trust in myself, trust in my intuition as a 23-year-old woman who was just like felt so alone in the system. And it was a very long labor, like 40 something hours. So there was a lot of like endurance that I had to like, it was like running a marathon forever. And so that's my daughter. My eldest daughter is very strong-willed. She's born on the same day as me, and we're
mm,
very similar, like strong-willed. And so that birth, how I like approached it is how I've approached parenting her, which is like it's been, we butt heads a lot. We're best friends, but
mm,
we butt heads. But like there's like this endurance factor of like I've just got to hold strong and like hold my ground, basically. You
yeah.
know, same as the birth. And then yeah, each birth teaches us something different and it impacts how we parent. If we can have that wisdom and like that knowledge as a woman, then it's a cool insight into each child, because I believe each child chooses their birth in a way. Like Magnolia, my youngest, she came at 30 weeks. My waters broke. I had no option. I had to surrender into like, I'm birthing a premature baby. She could be dead. We don't know. Like, well, we did know because they could feel the heartbeat, but like there's a risk there that she's very young. But I believe she chose that. And like there was so much gold in that, as looking back on it, so much gold. So
Mm.
yeah.
Something I've wrote down and circled, pussies are portals.
Yeah.
Can you help me understand more?
Um Well, they're a portal into the womb, and the womb is like where life is created. We wouldn't be here if wombs didn't exist. So the womb is like where our power lies as women. That's why there was witches, and then all the witches were killed because we were all like all the witches. I say we because we're all tapping into the power of the womb, and then that's scary for the for men. That's scary for religion, like back in the day. It's like there's so much power in there. So it's a portal into creation, and the fact that we hold that power to create and keep humanity going, it's the ultimate power. So it's like our vagina, our pussy is the entryway in there, and that's why it's so powerful.
Hmm. Can you talk to me about the connection between a woman's vagina and her heart and her emotional body? And particularly where this popped out in my mind, it was you referenced yoni massages in your podcast and how emotionally releasing and healing it can be. Question mark.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we hold so much emotion back to our womb, more so in our womb and our pussy. Like as women, and so do men, we push down a lot. We're not taught, most of us aren't taught to like express our emotion freely, and that's not embraced. So from a young age, we're taught to like push it down, hold on to the tears, move on. we take that into adulthood, and we push down the trauma, we push down the disappointment, the heartbreak, etc. And all that stored energy stores in our womb and, our sex center. And so where am I going with this? What did you ask me? Sorry.
Yeah. To help me understand more about how a woman's vagina is connected to her heart and where she holds her energy. And also you mentioned yoni massages in a podcast that you said it could be really healing energetically and emotionally, like it could be a great emotional release.
Yeah, okay, that's two different things. So the yoni massage is great because it's healing touch in an area that often has experienced a lot of trauma or holds on to a lot of energy. And so if we can have a healing experience with somebody who we trust, and yoni massage, there's way too many dodgy practitioners out there. So if you're listening and you want to go to a yoni massage practitioner, don't Google someone. You need a referral, because just like any profession, there's dodgy people out there, and then there's really people with integrity. Just that's a side note, but yeah, it can be deeply healing for women to have this non-sexual healing touch in that area of their body so that they can release the trauma that's associated with that, that area of their body. So they may have had a first sexual experience that was traumatic, and then they can heal from that and allow that, energy to flow. So that's that. And then the heart for women, the positive pole in our body is our heart. So for men, their positive pole is their cock. So we need, as women, our heart to feel like cherished and open and safe to open and adored and all the things. We need that to open our pussy, basically. So if a woman is having sex and she says, oh, I don't really lubricate naturally, I experience a lot of pain, often she's just racing into sex, doing it because she should, not because she wants to. And often she doesn't feel held emotionally in that relationship. She hasn't connected with that person at the heart, or she feels very shut down in her heart space, which then means her vagina is shut down. Yeah.
The positive pole being a man's cock and the positive pole being a woman's heart, and then the inverse, I would assume. What's that about?
That's a tantric teaching. The woman's positive pole is her heart. Man's positive pole is his cock. So for a woman, we need to feel safe to open our heart so that we can experience really deeply connected, intimate sex. For men in general, and this is a generalization because there are men who are more in their feminine who needs their heart to feel like, open first. But in general, a man needs grounding touch on his penis to open, right? It's not, men don't necessarily always need to be like in a deeply connected, intimate space to open. That's why it's, like often there's this kind of butting of heads because the guy's like, I've got an erection, let's go. And the woman's just like, I don't give a fuck, like whether you've got like what, like have you appreciated me throughout the week? Have you tended to my needs emotionally?
He no longer has an erection.
Yeah. Well, you don't say this. Like, you'd never say that to a guy. I wouldn't. But there's this underlying current of like, if only guys would get this, that like it's actually really simple. If you want more sex, tend to your woman's emotional needs. Be curious. Ask her how she is every day. Listen with presence. Put your fucking phone away. Excuse my French because I love the word fuck, but put your phone away and listen. Prioritize her. Make her dinner. Do the dishes. Like, figure out what her love language is, because we all have a different one. If it's acts of service, before she gets home tonight, clean the house, vacuum, especially if she's a mother, and notice how much more open she is to wanting to have sex with you if you do all those things. If she loves gifts, bring a bunch of flowers, and there's way more likelihood that you'll get a blowjob this week. It's not hard. It's not rocket science.
Just make her feel loved, cared for, seen, all these things.
Safe. not judged for being emotional, you know, not like, oh, what, you got your period again. It's like,
Oh,
yeah.
good luck, man.
Yeah.
Good luck. Okay, I'd like to spend the last 5, maybe 10 minutes that we have here.
Yep. Yeah.
Tantra and frames for people who want to experience deeper lovemaking. What are some of the frames that we can play with that will shift us away from just really good sex to potentially like really deep, heart opening, ecstatic lovemaking experiences?
Yeah. Look, there's so many, but like being aware of the polarity thing, which is spoken about a lot now, but like really being aware that there needs to be polarity in the dynamic between two people in order for there to be like really ecstatic sex. That's important. And we've
Could you
spoken
go deeper
about
into
that.
that?
Well, we've spoken about that. You know, think of the you know, like whoever's holding that masculine pole needs to be more like grounded and present and direct with their energy. And the woman or the person who's in the feminine needs to actively trust and let go and soften and receive. And this can flip, like this can totally flip. It doesn't mean that the guy always has to be in a heterosexual relationship traditionally. The guy doesn't always have to be in that energy. Like he may just want to just surrender, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful. And then the woman kind of steps more into the like, you know, the director's role in a way, like the,
Yeah.
you know, but there needs to be like a difference in the energy so that the magnet can go boom and like really stick, right?
Yeah.
People like that analogy of the magnet because it's just like you can visually see a magnet, you know when it like pushes away from itself.
There, and it's very clear when you're in a sexual dynamic that feels not polarizing, like in the opposite way.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
who's driving here? There's like 2 steering wheels in this car. Like,
Yeah.
this is getting weird.
Yeah, you're both just, yeah, exactly. So there's polarity, and then there's really a need for like there to take out the goal-oriented sex. So, you know, there's so much focus on like getting somewhere during lovemaking, on having to ejaculate or come, on having to have an orgasm, in the traditional sense of like an explosive big bang at the end. And, you know, that language you use of like, oh, we finished or he finished. It's like for, you know, modern day tantric sex, what's taught is like there's no goal, there's no end. It's just a journey. Somehow it will come to an end, but if we take out that end goal, that's where the magic happens. And that's, you know, that's a process. So many people have to unlearn what they've learned about sex, which is that there has to be an outcome for it to be successful. There has to be, the guy has a you know, ejaculates, and that's seen as the only way to have an orgasm. And then the woman ideally has an orgasm and you both go to sleep. It's like, it doesn't have to be that way.
So polarity is the first thing, like a first frame of reference for ecstatic lovemaking. Also removing the goal. Some of the things that are interesting with me with these last few minutes is like breast being an extension of the heart or a symbol of the heart. That those types of thoughts. Also, another one that I've picked up from David Data is a cock becoming hard in response to a lover is a picture of how a man is energized to give his gift back to the beauty he sees in the world. Those are like those types of things have been really useful for me in lovemaking to lean into those, to tune into those, and allow the experience to change. What else might I add to my list that would be helpful?
Sorry, I got distracted by the David Data reference. So what's your question? Sorry, like what is?
So if I envision that my lover's breasts are her heart, then that changes the way that I touch her. That changes the way that I interact with her. I love that and would love to hear if you have any other examples like that.
Yeah. Well, for a woman who's making love to a man, his cock is an extension of his heart. So like, you know, if we can instead of just touching a man's penis in a way that we think we should and to get an outcome, if we can fully worship him in his entirety, not just his sex center or his genitals, but his entire being and his soul and his purpose and, you know, all that he brings to the world, then that's worship. Like, that's true worship. And that's when a man is going to feel deeply satiated by lovemaking, because he's not just being seen as like an object that just gets, you know, kind of touched in a way to get somewhere, but it's like, oh, she actually saw deep into my soul and, like, you know, made love to me in a way that made me feel like she accepts all of me, not just the good parts, but, you know, the shadows and the, like, the my stuff that's come up. But it's like, this is a game changer for women and for men, but it's a game changer when women can get this. And, like, I'll teach it, and often women will DM me afterwards and be like, oh my God, like, this happened last night because I actually embraced that. And, like, my partner wants to thank you, or like, you should have
here he is.
yeah. They're like, oh my God. Like, often they'll be like, they just were like, what the hell did you just do? Like, what was that? You know, because it's just a shift in energy and like a shift in consciousness around that.
Yeah. So really making love to a man's cock and to see his cock as a representation of him, all that he is, his entire life, and how you love him is the way you treat his cock. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, sincerely, thank you for taking time in your caravan to swat at mosquitoes and answer questions about sex from me. I appreciate you very much.
Oh, thank you for having me. Great questions, great topics. Like, yeah, it's always a pleasure to share. And I hope that the people listening receive something that can really move them and change their sex life, which is my mission and goal, is like people feel, you know, more empowered in that area of their life and more freedom and more acceptance. And so thank you for having me.
For somebody that has listened to this and they want to hear more about your work and lean more into your teachings, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram, which is at Juliet, JULIET _Allen, ALLEN. That's where I share a lot of my work. You can find me on Substack, and you can also find me just on my website, which is juliet-allen.com.